All right, so here we are with this event sponsored by the Pre-Law Students Association at Wayne State University. And we have at the moment five panelists who are at law schools in various places away from Detroit and here to give their perspectives on law school and what it's like to be in these various places. And first of all, I want to turn the program over to PLSA to give a little introduction to the organization. So, Alicia, you want to?
Well, first of all, thank you guys all for coming on behalf of Pre-Law Student Association. This has been an organization for years, and we're really happy to continue it. And thank you, Professor Roth, for hosting this for us. And we're really excited for what you guys have to say and the advice that you will give us.
Thank you. And so I have frequently brought groups of people together who have been my students over the years and who are in various aspects of either law practice or stages of being a law student. And always happy to have a range of people with a range of different life paths and a range of different institutions. And rather than me go on and try to introduce everyone, why don't I just hand it over to people, and I'll call on people to give first some introduction to who they are, what their major was, when they were at Wayne State, what the institution is that they're in now, and whatever other brief thing they want to say about themselves before we get into the heart of matters. So I'll look to our senior most person here to start off, Dominic Nanni at Delaware Law School in Wilmington. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi everyone. It's nice to meet you all. Professor Roth. It's nice to be reunited this way. I haven't seen you in a very long time. I was at Wayne State. I'm going to date myself. I was last a student at Wayne State in 2019. I started undergraduate in 2009. So I was a political science undergraduate, and then I did English as an MA, and I was enrolled in the PhD program. I'm basically finished. I have to defend my dissertation, but I decided to not to put that on hold while in law school. I was a college professor for about, if you include graduate teaching assisting at Wayne State, for almost 10 years. And last year, I just decided I wanted to get out of higher education and pursue a different career. I had relocated to Philadelphia to teach, and I looked at law schools around here, and I decided on Delaware law, mostly because that was the one that gave me the most amount of money, which I think is just like a really good practical factor when deciding law schools. And so yeah, I just started my second semester of my 1L year, as I'm assuming everyone else on the panel has or is, I believe. Are we all 1Ls here? Yes or no? No? Okay, okay. A couple not 1Ls. But yeah, so I'm excited to talk to y'all.
So let's now go to our 3L. So Kyle, you want to tell us about University of
Yeah,
Michigan?
for sure. Hi everyone. My name's Kyle. I'm a 3L at the University of Michigan. I graduated from Wayne State in 2022 with a double major in political science and mathematical economics. During my time at Wayne State, I was also on the swim team. Um, I knew I wanted to go to law school straight out of college, but sort of applied during my senior year and ultimately wasn't happy with the results I got. So I decided to take a year off and worked for a year at basically an art gallery in a role that I usually poorly describe as sort of like a data analyst, just kind of to fill up the time. And now I'm here at Michigan.
So we've got more people joining, which is good to see. How about Laura Lynch?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Laura. I graduated in 2023. I got dual degrees in political science and criminal justice. And then after graduation, I interned for a little bit at the State Appellate Defender's Office in Michigan. And then, although I am public interest oriented. Unfortunately, law school is very expensive and I'm first generation. So I took 2 years and I worked at a real estate law firm so that I could save up and squirrel money away so that I could afford law school. And yeah, now I'm at Northwestern in Chicago and I'm pursuing prisoners' rights, prisoners, and just basically anything that has to do with ending mass incarceration. I'm a 1L second semester, so I'm still figuring that out. But again, thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Sara Pacella.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sara Pacella. I graduated from Wayne State in 2025, and I actually was a law major. So I have a BA in law. But I actually was a biochemistry major for 3 out of 4 of my years. And then it was actually Professor Roth's human rights class that decided to make me apply to law school. So I didn't think about law school at all until my senior year of college. It was a pretty rushed application process for me. But much like Dominic, Cooley offered me a fantastic scholarship. So I was lucky enough to be able to attend there. And now I'm in my second semester of my 1L.
Okay. And finally, Lucas.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Lucas. I also graduated in 20, yes, that feels so recent, from Wayne State. I was a sociology major. I would say the same. It was a stressful application period, and I was rushed more than I should have been. I did come in knowing I wanted to apply to law school, but I put off a lot of the actual doing the work that makes a good application until a little later in the game. But ultimately decided Michigan State, largely on the scholarship. Like most people I've spoken to have justified their decision on that same basis. But yeah, that's where I am now. I'm a 1L second semester.
Okay. So everyone at least has been through the first year, first semester exams and has gotten a sense of how law school differs from other aspects of higher education. Particularly that first semester exam period is probably a brand new kind of experience. So I wonder if people would like to hold forth about what it's like to be in law school as compared with what it's like to be an undergraduate student. Who would like to jump in?
Well, I guess I can start
Oh
off
my
with just
child.
saying it gets better after 1L at the very least. It definitely is a grind. I definitely found myself having to be a good deal more disciplined than I was in undergrad. But I think most of it is just keeping on top of your workload. And, if you can stay on time with your readings and attend classes, that's, kind of like 80% of the work, and the rest you kind of figure out from there.
Um, I'm gonna say I think so. A lot of time spent in classes in law school is like briefing cases and talking about cases in class. But I don't know if it was the same for y'all. But what helped me most in terms of studying for exams was actually not the cases. It was doing practice essays and like endless hypotheticals. Like you just have to like most professors will give you like a question bank or like practice essays or like past final exams that you can study with. And for me, that was the most useful part. It was just like continually taking practice exams and continually like, finding hypos on, we use Twen. I don't know if you guys use Twen at your schools. It's a academic database for like law school materials, past exams and whatnot. But that was how I made it through. And like Kyle said, staying on top of your reading, like it might be tempting to like fall behind a little bit because stuff is going on, and life does happen. But like if you can stay on top of your reading, you'd be surprised at how much it helps. But even like missing just like one class, not doing like one day's worth of reading, like it just the problem is it's like a snowball, right? Like the rules and whatnot don't stop. And if you miss one, you're just constantly behind.
I would say that the material for law school is not hard. It's just an insurmountable amount of stuff you have to memorize all the time. And at least at Cooley, we don't have a break between classes and exams at all. And then all of our exams are in 1 week, so it's pretty much you're learning for 15 weeks and then exams. So for me, it's spaced repetition from day one. Like day 2, you should be going back to day 1. Day 3, you should be going back to day 1 and 2. And that's like the only way to stay on top of it that I've found.
I definitely agree with Kyle particularly. I think just 100% that if you establish the foundation and the groundwork leading up to exams, it makes exams a lot less painful because then again, it's just like if you already really know the stuff going in, of course you're going to need to refresh and review. And of course, it's very helpful too if you do what Sara says, where you're just going back and revisiting the material. I think overall, I am thankful because I feel like in undergrad, I developed a really good routine where it was just like missing out on, I mean, again, I know someone said life happens and life absolutely does happen, but if you kind of look at it of like skipping classes like not negotiable, like there are just things like that. If you build it in as though you are like law school is your job, you are married to law school for this period. It's not something you really have to think about. You just do your readings and then you don't fall behind and it makes exams less painful.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It's treated as non-essential, or not non-essential, but as essential. Because also don't, if you miss something, don't plan on that not coming back later. It absolutely will. And I'd also say the professors and your institution will probably push very early like how they think you should be studying and what kind of techniques you should be doing. And at least at Michigan State, they've put on a lot of events to teach people who are really unfamiliar, like with what an outline might look like, how to write an outline and how to use that to study. And I would say just go to as many of those things as you have time for, especially if you're struggling. Don't wait to learn the skill.
Okay. Hassan wanted to break in with a question or a comment. Hassan?
I just wanted to initially thank Brad and everybody else for attending and, obviously spreading all of this information for all of us and all. I wanted to inform you guys that, you know, for a lot of us, at least most of the people I know, in this Zoom call, we're actually still in undergrad applying. So it's more of like an informational, so we know exactly like what we should prep ourselves for and the application process and all of the info you guys are giving us. It's truly like it's a blessing and we appreciate you guys taking time out of your days to attend it. And I just wanted to thank you guys. And a question I have is as somebody currently in the application process for the upcoming 2026 law school semesters and law school in general, do you guys feel like ranking of law school, especially with how much tuition is you know as important as it used to be? Because I know like top 14 is so like, or like even top of the state, and just so much like importance on the law school you go to is advertised. But I feel like if a school is offering you more money and it's the same degree, it's very hard to pass up on.
I can definitely speak on that. So Cooley is one of the worst ranked law schools out there on purpose. It is by design. Like the people they accept into their classes have lower GPAs, lower LSAT scores. They want to give people a chance at being attorneys, but that comes also with a lot of failure. And okay, so Lucas and I also live together. Fun fact. And Lucas is obviously at Michigan State University. So we've been able to compare a lot. And I can tell you for a fact that the coursework is no different. You are learning the same things. And I have found that I actually have more readings every night and more work to do than Michigan State. Just coincidence. But there are certain careers that you will be blocked or you will just have a harder time starting right out of law school, especially like something I'm considering is the ACLU. They really like a clerkship, and clerkships can be harder to get when you are at a poor ranked law school. So it's definitely something to consider, but I do feel like that trend is lessening to an extent now. And also, out of law school a couple years, what matters is your work product, not where you went to school. So that's my take from it.
I wanna follow up with what Sarah's saying because I also am attending a school that if you look nationally, it's not ranked that high. especially when you compare to like there's Villanova, Temple, like Rutgers, UVA is a couple hours away, one of the best law schools in America. Um, but I think you should look like how it's ranked regionally. Like my law school, it has a very good reputation in like Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, that area. And so I think national rankings matter to a certain extent. Like you said, like there are certain careers that want people that went to a T14 school or like a Harvard or something like that. But there are also areas of the country that like there are regional law schools that have very good reputations in the area, and you would have no problem finding a job if you attended one of those schools. So that's just my opinion.
I like to talk on this because I had such a hard time choosing a law school based on this, and I know the struggle and the stress that comes with trying to figure that out. So I definitely emphasize or empathize with anyone who's in that position. Again, I'm first generation, so the idea of picking a law school and knowing how much it costs was like it put so, I just felt so stressed about picking it. I go to Northwestern, which is a T14, and I was really between picking Northwestern, and I definitely had schools that I had um, more money. They were going to give me more money. And so it was a hard decision to make, particularly because I want to go into public interest. So I'm not going to be making $9 bajillion a year. But I just want to quickly talk about some of the reasons why I made my decision. It doesn't mean it's right for you. It's just some of the things that I thought about and have experienced. So I definitely think that in picking the school that you choose, you need to pick it based on what you want to do and whether or not the school is going to serve your needs based on that. I think that for me, in going to Northwestern, I definitely could have gone to other schools, and I definitely could still, if I end up being a public defender, I could still do that. But I chose Northwestern because they have clinics that are really tailored to exactly what I want to do. So getting practical experience was very important to me. They have financial aid that is really helpful for students, particularly going into public interest. But again, if I wasn't going into public interest and wouldn't benefit from those resources, then Northwestern probably wouldn't have been the school that I chose. I think also the school that you choose, it's going to differ depending on like networking and resources that can offer to you. So I think that Dominic made a good point in terms of like the regional school or the ranking of your school can to some degree open doors for you just based on how many other people went there, and the name kind of does carry something. But at the same time, I know, like Sara said too, I've spoken to a ton of attorneys doing wonderful things who say it's your work product that ultimately counts. So again, I think it's a really personal decision based on what you want to do. And I think there's really no wrong answer because you're going to be a lawyer either way. So that's a little long, but I have strong feelings on that.
I also think too, different schools may not be ranked nationally well, but they may have like individual programs that are wonderful and ranked on their own apart from like a national ranking. So like my school is in Delaware, and I did not know this, but every corporation in America is incorporated in Delaware. And so they push like we have one of the best like corporate law programs in the country. Like our corporate law journal, Law Review, is like widely read and whatnot, and they encourage all the students to go into corporate law and business law. So I think that like different schools may have a trade-off like that, where it might not be ranked nationally, but they may have a program that is, tailored to something you're interested in. And you could attend it for that reason, even though it's not kind of, ranked nationally well.
Lucas and Kyle want to say something about this?
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to beat a dead horse because I think everyone made a lot of good points. Particularly that, the school you choose like really should be dependent on what you're looking to get out of law school. I think the only thing I'll add is that sort of like that, like building off that regionality element, where you want to end up can definitely be limited by the law school you choose to go to. It's actually one of the reasons I picked Michigan was because I knew I didn't want to stay in Michigan, ironically enough, but I wasn't really sure where I wanted to go. So I wanted to go to a school that would like give me optionality. So when I was interviewing with law firms, I was interviewing in Seattle, California, Chicago, DC, and they were all like giving me the time of day, for better or for worse, because I went to a higher ranked school.
Mhm. Lucas?
Yeah, and I I think everything has been said at this point. Yeah, very personal decision. Take what you can get.
So, do people have ideas about where they wanted to be lawyers in terms of, obviously, three of you are in Michigan. I don't know if, you've been thinking in terms of staying in the state of Michigan, or whether people who are not from Michigan are thinking of coming back to the state of Michigan. There's certain geographical ideas you have about where you want to be a lawyer.
I can start here. I definitely am thinking I'm going to stay in Michigan. Also, public interest oriented. I would really love to come back to Detroit, if that ends up working out. So yeah, I am hoping to stay there. Again, like with the rankings and getting back to that, again, it's like whether you're going to be public interest, that is also something to really consider with all of that. And even coming down to like how you rank in your class and your grades, like all of this, be thinking about what it is leading to and why these things matter for you.
I think I think the structure of the bar exam is changing as well, so it's actually going to be easier to practice in multiple states. There's but like, is it the MBE, I think is what it is?
Well, there's a multi-state bar
Or
exam. Typically the way bar exams work is that you have one day that's the multi-state bar
yeah,
exam that's uniform, and then you have one day that's your state exam. And then different states have different standards about what's called waiving in, where you can, if you're a member of the bar in one state, depending on the rules, there might be a reciprocity, and you might be able to become a member of the bar in another state.
right. Okay,
You know.
okay. So I think it's becoming a bit easier to next gen. That was it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it might be easier in the future to practice in multiple states where you don't have to pick like I want to go here or
Right.
somewhere else.
Mhm. Other thoughts about locales?
I knew that I wanted to either practice in Chicago or a big city like DC, and so that's why I chose a bigger school or like a bigger name school, just because I knew that that would, from both um, talking to people, both who are already lawyers, people at the different schools, it does seem like there are some schools that make it easier to go into a bigger market. However, I also heard that just because you go to a smaller school or a more regional school, it doesn't mean that you can't move to a big city. It might just mean you have to work a little harder. You might have to put yourself a little bit farther out there with networking and do things like that. So that's just something to keep in mind. I think whoever said you just really need to keep in mind what you're like where you want to really end up location wise, that's important too.
Hassan, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, all of these are extremely like informational, and it's like you might all make such good points, and like especially where you want to end up and where you go, and there's just so many different factors in deciding everything when it comes to the law school if you're choosing. But my question is following up with that is how did you decide what type of lawyer you guys wanted to pursue after law school? Was that something you guys had in mind prior to attending, or is that something you formed in the in being in law school? Because I feel like prior to attending it, it's so hard for you to really know what type of lawyer you want to be.
But before anyone answers that, let me introduce our sixth panelist. Hadees Amin is with us from Atlanta.
My
How are you?
apologies. I got the time mixed up. That's on me.
Why don't
Uh,
you introduce yourself and say something about how you came to be where you are and tell us about where you are.
Hi, I'm Hadees Amin. Uh, I'm at Emory Law. Started at Wayne State. This is my first year. Um, yeah, I don't know. I can answer any questions about that process, but yeah.
Okay. Well, so Hassan had this question about what kind of lawyer you wanted to be and how you knew, and so how would people like to respond?
Oh, well, I guess I'm not really there yet because I'm a first year, but I will say that at least at Emory, they give you a lot of exposure especially through networking, through a lot of different types of lawyers, and you get to sort of see what everybody does. And one good way that I've been recommending, because I'm still not all the way there on figuring out, but like that's sort of helped me is that your summers is like a big way. Like whatever you're doing over your summers here, is a big way to help figure out what you want to do. I say like honestly, you should go in with some sort of idea so you know where to keep your goals because grades do matter, especially if you want to do something like corporate law. But like if maybe you're not sure whatsoever, like summer is usually a good time. Like networking events are usually good times to experiment a little.
Yeah, I would definitely say you should at least have some idea of what you want to do going into it, but it definitely will change over the years. There's definitely so many different areas of law I've learned about over the years that I would have had no clue that existed before going to law school. Um, when I was going into law school, I knew I wanted to do something related to the environment. It was just something I was really passionate about. I always knew I wanted my career to be, in that space. And going into law school, I just assumed I wanted to be an environmental litigator because that was really the only way I knew how to. I kind of thought like that was the dichotomy was either you're environmental litigator, or you represent like big oil. And I took 1L civil procedure and did not like it. So that sort of closed out the litigation. Um, Realized that wasn't necessarily the path I wanted to take. But over the years, I've learned about so many different areas of law. Now I'm sort of going to be working more in the clean energy space, which I'm really excited about. But yeah, you should definitely have a sense of what you want to do, but be open to exploring new things while you're in law school.
Folks, you should definitely not let civil procedure put you off of litigation. So, civil procedure, I have to say, through 4 degrees of my education, civil procedure was probably the worst experience that I ever had. It
Yes.
just is
Yeah,
incredibly boring.
honestly, I
100%.
mostly say that tongue in cheek because I didn't hate civil procedure that much, but it was just a nice quippy way to explain that.
I
I didn't
I
want to
just
do
took it.
litigation.
I
Civil
just took
procedure
it.
is awful. Every
I
minute of
just
it.
I just took it last semester under Richard Freer, who's like the notorious like Civ Pro guy. Because he's the dean here, and it's probably my lowest grade. That was an awful, awful
Do
course.
do y'all take civil procedure in the fall or the spring? Because I'm
I'm
taking
Fall,
it
taking
right
it
fall,
right
now.
now.
I'm taking
I'm
it right
taking it
now too.
with
Okay.
fall.
property and con law.
I
It's
took it in the
lovely.
fall. I didn't think it was that bad. I did not think it was that bad. It
What,
wasn't exciting. It wasn't that
really
bad.
quick one off. Do you guys get outlines on your civil procedure exam?
We don't get an
No,
outline. We don't get an outline for our property exam. That's the only class we're not getting an outline for.
We get
We're not
none
allowed
on
to.
any exams ever.
we
Just to put that out there. It never
I
Okay.
when I was in Professor Ross' poli sci class, he let us use notes on exams, and he said in law school you can use notes on exams. And I went into law school thinking I can use notes on exams, and every single one of my professors, I'd walk up and say, "Why aren't exams open note?" And they'd just be like, "Can you use notes on the bar exam?" I'd be like, "Well, no." Well, there you go.
I
No.
never represented that you could use notes in law school exam.
I think you hinted at it.
To circle back to the question, to circle back to the question we were at.
Yes, indeed.
I I have perhaps a controversial opinion. I think, well, first of all, I knew what I wanted to do. Again, like I had prefaced at the start, I kind of know the subject matter, but I think I don't know who made the point, but yeah, you are exposed to a lot of new and different things, and so again, that's like great for you to experiment during your summers, during if you're allowed to do practicums and things like that. But I would actually highly, highly recommend that you come in with at least some kind of idea. I don't think that it's like, to me, I feel like in undergrad, a lot of the time it's like, well, you go in and then you can take your first classes and you can kind of go around and explore. But at least for what I have experienced during my time, the process for job recruiting for some fields has moved up so fast that if you don't know already what you're going to do, or at least again, like have some semblance of the area, it can be really hard to break into it later. And it's everyone hates it. The law schools hate it, the students hate it because you might be thinking, hey, that's crazy unreasonable. It is crazy unreasonable. Um, but I also think that for me, again, I want to go into public interest, so I'm not facing the same kind of like market pressures and issues regarding job hunting. But I know that for me, having had work experience, and particularly having a resume from college where I volunteered and did things that are applicable to my career area, I know that I have access and I've gotten opportunities in interviews to public interest places that other students wouldn't have had because they didn't have that background. So it's just like, again, I don't think it's gonna, it can only behoove you to kind of have an idea and to perhaps get some experience in that area, even if it's small, even if it's just a volunteer position or something like that, because it's only gonna open more doors for you in law school in the long run.
I think you should be open to changing your mind too. I mean, I went into law school with I was really interested in constitutional law. I wanted to do something related to that. And I thought I had like a strong prejudice against like criminal law. I'm like, I don't want to take crim, no interest whatsoever. And then I took crim and I loved every minute of it. It was one of the most interesting classes I've taken so far. And that is kind of steering me in a direction that I otherwise wouldn't have been interested in pursuing career wise. So like Laura, I'm kind of interested in public interest stuff. I have interviews next week at two DA's offices over here to do like an internship over the summer, and I'm seriously considering pursuing it. But I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't been open to changing my mind about what I was interested in and what I wanted to do career-wise. And your professors help you a lot with that. If you go to office hours and talk to them, I mean, they're a great resource. And I think a lot of students don't utilize it enough. You know, they go to class, they leave, they go home, they go back to the library, whatever. But going and talking to your professors in office hours, especially about career choices and whatnot, is super helpful, I think. I would not.
Oh, and going back to what Laura said, she is right. The hiring process has moved up. That's like really big law, which also if you're like for a lot of schools, like this isn't I'm not trying to be like just like trying to be like all about rankings or whatever, but like if you want big law, you got to go in there knowing, like even before you even apply to law school, you got to know because if you're going to a school that doesn't like place well into big law, like even at Emory, I think we placed around like 48% into big law. So like,
Why don't you explain what big law is?
Oh, big law is essentially that's like your corporate, this is biggest law firms. I think it's some people. I think generally it's anything over like 500. I think, right?
They care about GPA a lot too. Like you have
Yeah,
to have
and
like
especially they care now, especially at a school like Northwestern where Laura she like that's it's the threshold is like lower. But for school like Emory where it's like 50% do and 50% don't, like 40, 50, your grades are gonna matter, right? And especially with how the hiring process is like moved along, like it's literally just your first semester grades. And it's like she said, it's awful. But for most other things, like mid law is not doing that. Like mid law is just it's pretty big and they pay pretty well. They're lower, less lawyers. Boutique firms aren't doing that. Like smaller firms aren't doing that. Public interest isn't really doing that. It's mainly, but again, you for big law, you have to be thinking. You got to be thinking now. Ironic, like it pretty much before you even take your LSAT, you should be thinking about: do I really want big law? Is that what I want to go for? And am I going to be okay if I don't get big law?
I also think on the flip of that, don't worry too much about it, especially right now where you guys are at and in your first year of law school. Because I know some people who have gotten too caught up on like, I am only going to do property law, and then they don't focus on contracts, they don't focus on crim, and then their GPA tanks. And that's hard. So I would just say your first year, especially, your classes are set for you. So think about your summer internship, but especially your first semester. And right now, just focus on getting there and getting through it and keeping your grades up from me.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I don't know if this has been echoed in any other of the other law schools, but Michigan State, all of my advisors have more or less communicated that your 1L summer, if you really aren't 100% sure, it's okay if you're just getting experience. And like from there, your 2L summer is where it really counts, that you're getting some kind of internship that is really going to be career oriented and is going to put you on the right path to what you want to be doing out of law school. So don't worry again, assuming you're not looking to do big law, or because that is a different set of considerations. But otherwise, it's okay if you're not 100% sure right now. Go into it with an open mind, I would say.
The one thing I always like to ask people is about the transferability of skills from undergraduate to law school. What sort of things did you learn as an undergrad that you found most applicable to law school? What sort of things that you wish you had learned that you find, yourself at a deficit in because you did not get that experience as an undergrad?
I think that two big things. One, I think primarily, I know I mentioned this before, really it's not really so much about the content, it was about the routines that I built. Again, I built really good, really consistent study habits and like good time blocking and time management skills. I think those things have been very transferable. In terms of classes, and I'm not just saying this because Dr. Roth invited me. Dr. Roth's classes, man. I have used stuff from uh American legal processes, and then I don't remember what class we took, but this is actually hilarious that it happened today. In one of my classes, we were talking about well, it doesn't really matter what we were talking about, but my professor was talking about strict scrutiny, and I wrote a paper for Dr. Roth's class on strict scrutiny, and I was able to pull the paper up and like reference it so that I knew what was going on really quick. And I use stuff from Dr. Roth's class all the time, so I would definitely say that that's helpful. I use that material quite often.
Caroline products, right? Footnote 4, like
I also think Professor Roth's readings are the most comparable to law school. So if you can practice now, never missing a reading, like having those done before class, every class, that's good practice. And then I would also say, if you are using any kind of generative AI to write anything for you at all, stop, because you're shooting yourself in the foot. Because in law school, the most important skill is your writing. It translates through every single thing, and specifically like the structure they teach you in law school. And if you have something else writing it for you, it will show up on the exams every time. So that is my word of advice.
I wanna echo that as both a student at Wayne State, and then I taught English 1010 or English 1020 and 3010, which I'm assuming all y'all took. Um, in my experience, like the transition from writing for undergrad and even graduate school, if you did a master's before law school, to writing in law school is like night and day. Like writing in law school is completely different than writing at any other kind of level in education. Less is more, IRAC, structure, issue spotting. And I don't think those are things that you learn directly as an undergraduate student. But I agree with Sarah, like the writing is the most important thing. Legal methods one, I think, is the most important class you take in law school, in my opinion.
And it's absolutely night and day, the difference in writing from undergrad. I would say don't try to hold on to your undergrad tendencies at all for even if you think you're a good writer. Just listen to how they're saying to do it and do it like that. Um, I'd say if you're in any of the graduate law classes, just getting practice briefing cases and like pulling a rule of law and understanding the difference between the different sections of a brief is important. Just get used to it. You will do it 100 times. And a lot of the cases will be the same. So if, at least in my experience, so if you read it closely and you brief it, it will be helpful to just have it in the back of your mind that, oh, it was this one. Also, I would say on the flip side of that, if you are just skimming and you think you're understanding it and you have a really shallow understanding, that certainly could trip you up when you encounter the same kind of ideas later. And if you try to bring that understanding and rather than engage with it again.
Other thoughts?
I would say one more that I found is, so this is like a nitpicky one. So I know that because I know everybody did this. We like to pre-write our answers for Roth's exams. Don't do that. Just do the outline and practice writing the actual exam because it's so much more helpful because it teaches you how to use an outline and learn IRAC, like if you can, like stuff like that. Those are such little things. Like even now, I think like looking back in my last semester, I was discussing with one of my legal writing professor. I struggle a bit with the IRAC, that type of format, right? So
Well, why don't you explain what that is?
Oh, IRAC. Okay, so issue, rule, application, conclusion. That's usually how you write. So there's two ways. Sorry, I'm gonna explain everything. So firstly, exams are primarily issue spotter, where essentially you'll be most exams. I think you might here and there you might get differences. These usually like multiple choice and then there's issue spotters, right? Your written exams are typically issue spotters, which is basically you'll be given a fact pattern and you're supposed to pick out the facts, essentially, not the facts, essentially the issues, write the issues, issue, rule, application, conclusion. And yeah, so that's essentially how you're supposed to look at it, right? So the thing is that it's while you might think it's like a lot easier than it sounds, it's actually a lot more difficult than it is to like how it sounds to essentially pull out those issues. So any sort of practice, any sort of like reading, like I don't know how to explain it, but like this sort of like active reading is really important. It's a really important skill to have going in because it'll put you ahead of everybody else. And it's such like a little thing to learn. It's something I would have loved to have focused more. Like I definitely had more opportunity to do it, but I feel like even then, I feel like I would have loved to have done more with it because it is such a big part and it can be such a like almost like it could almost make or break like between like a median grade and like an A, you know? So, practicing writing, practicing reading, like those types of things are very important. But yeah.
To go along,
Sorry.
so no, go ahead. You go ahead, sir.
Okay, sorry, just really quick. If you guys have time in your schedules to take legal writing, law and harm, and legal procedure, I know those are pretty new classes, but if you could take those are so helpful to even just get the framework of what you're going into. You'll be so much ahead right in the beginning.
I am so jealous that they have a Bachelor of Law program at Wayne State right now. I was also going to say to go along with the writing thing, I don't know if this is still a thing, but when I was an undergrad, you just built your bibliographies with a website, BibMe, whatever the heck it was. But my legal writing professor in the fall of last semester was so nitpicky about citations. Citations are so important in law school and like doing it correctly, like knowing your blue book, like knowing when to pin cite, knowing when to do a full citation, all of that matters. And I don't think, I mean, when I taught English 1020 and 3010, we didn't spend that much time on citations. It's not something that you did in undergrad, but that's also super important, I would say. Like your blue book is your best friend.
Yeah, like you will be called out for an italicized comma, so watch for them.
Kyle, did you have something you wanted to say?
I actually don't know that I necessarily agree with the opinions on like the change in writing from law school or from undergrad to law school. I guess the thing I would say is sort of like, as you're brought up through like English and like high school and college, you're taught how to write expansively. And I guess the difference is that law school kind of forces you to crunch that back down, have like focus more on brevity, and things like that. I do think what Laura said about the building, like having routine was huge. Um, in terms of, like if you have a good routine in undergrad, that's gonna like pay dividends in law school. If I'm being honest, I wasn't that disciplined of a student in undergrad. I kind of just like made my way through it, but I was on the swim team and that taught me discipline. And I felt like that, helped me a lot. And then, yeah, I think just like briefing for class is like another one that's really odd. I don't know how everyone else does it in undergrad, but I would do the reading, then I would show up to class and take notes. And now I'm doing the opposite, where I'm taking notes to show up to class. So that's a bit of a transition. But you sort of work out your own system and figure it out from there.
I don't think you're prepared enough in undergraduate for being cold called on to. That's like a definitely new experience in law school, and I don't think that I mean, you don't technically, like if the professor doesn't care in undergrad, you don't have to say anything in class if you don't want to. Whereas in law school, you're basically forced to, in front of everyone, right? And if you're not prepared, it shows. So that's another thing I think that, you don't really get prepared for that in undergraduate.
There used to be first a movie and then a television show called The Paper Chase, and I don't know whether anyone has ever seen any of that stuff on YouTube or any place. But it really created a lore about law school, and it's the cold calling that was really very much the focus, and the kind of humiliation that was systematically inflicted by the John Houseman character, Professor Kingsfield. And even when I was in law school in the 1980s, that was pretty much passé. People were not kind of put on the spot in as brutal a way as the lore had it. But you do have to be prepared to be cold called. And that's definitely not something that people do in most undergraduate classes. Also not something that's done in most 2L and 3L classes. It's very much a 1L experience.
Do any of your professors do panels for cold calling instead of calling on individuals? Is that something you guys have encountered?
Yeah, I had one yesterday actually.
Okay.
I was on the panel. It went fine.
Yeah, the only professors I've had do panels also taught out of the country. I am wondering if that was something that, because I've heard some countries don't allow cold calling, apparently. I don't know.
This is kind of random, but I think it builds on, it kind of ties the question to the cold calling. I think that's something I didn't realize was very helpful until I kind of got into school, is I feel like throughout undergrad, I'm a yapper. I like to talk. And so throughout undergrad, I'm like someone who participated in class a lot. And just getting used to doing that, talking in class, saying something stupid sometimes in class, and then like just being like, well, no, that's class. And like just building in that habit through undergrad, it made cold calls and it made communicating in legal or in law classes, definitely was less pressure and less worrisome to me than it is a lot of my peers who say that they wish that they had built that skill in. Again, I think just like any I got it through again just being used to participating in class, but just like getting able any way you can to feel more comfortable with like messing up sometimes and then like not being hard on yourself over it. I think it's really gonna help you in law school.
So a question that I typically like to ask people is, what is the one thing that they wish they had known when they were undergrads, that they're seeing from their vantage point now as law students?
I would say that I wish I jumped sooner when I switched my major. So if you are thinking right now that law school does not sound good the way we've described it, don't hang on to it. Switch right now. Or just take more time for yourself to figure it out after, because I switched and then year after I was in law school and it was very abrupt, and I'm sure I would have had different school options had I waited. So just think about what you want to do and take your time. Take your time.
I would echo that. Granted, I only worked for 1 year before I attended law school, but I do think it was really valuable for me, sort of just, being an adult in the real world and kind of, learning that level of responsibility before going and, you know, essentially investing in a school that's very expensive and, isn't maybe, you don't get as many passes as you might in undergrad. So I guess that's not something I figured that out eventually, before I was in law school, but definitely there's no rush. Schools look upon it favorably when you've got some work experience, so do employers. So if you take a year or two, that's totally fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna third that. So I didn't take any time. I went straight through, and I look at it regrettably. And it's not that I don't like where I'm at. It's just even mentally, like working for a year is really good. Like it sets you pretty well. Or even let's say you work for a year, you go travel for a year, like something like that. Like because once you're in this kind of not stuck, but you gotta go through. You gotta. There's no like. It's like what Kyle said. There's no like. You don't get as many passes here. So kind of like I know like everybody's like, oh, I want to be done, but like I promise you, like I think at least like I want to say 40-50% of my class didn't go all the way through. They all took time off. Like I'm probably one of the youngest kids in my class. So like I say kids, we're all adults, but like I'm yeah, it's very worth it to take time off. And I would recommend that anybody who like isn't thinking about that, you should 100%.
Yeah, nothing new. I did the same thing. I went straight from undergrad, and it has been such a shock to see the how small a proportion it is of people who went straight from undergrad to law school. So take your time. If you think it'll make you a stronger applicant, don't hesitate to wait.
I think too, and this is I think a good thing. A lot of law schools are, I think a lot of law schools or more law schools at least now are taking like a holistic approach to an applicant. So I mean, maybe 15, 20 years ago it was GPA, LSAT, boom, you get in or you don't get in. But I think now like an applicant that has life experience, work experience before law school, makes them more interesting as like a holistic applicant. And I think that, schools like that.
This is kind of a variation of what has already been said, but I think that really I wish I had known in undergrad. People all the time say, like, your path is not linear. Like, just because people say that things need to go one way, like, doesn't mean it is. And I was like, that's, yeah, like that's for other people. Like, I'm gonna go to law school. Um, and I think that like everyone else said. So again, I graduated. I thought I was just going to take a year. I thought I was going to travel, maybe work a little bit or do an internship. And then for me, it ended up turning into 2 years of working, and I traveled as well. And it just like kind of worked out that way. And I think that it has only benefited me. I completely agree with everybody else. I think that I think one of the most invaluable things that I did before going to law school was working full time first, particularly for a law firm, because it taught me how to, like, in undergrad, I was always doing something that I really enjoyed doing because I could pick my classes and pick my major. That obviously is not how work is. And so sometimes when I was sitting at, or like sometimes at work, you have to sit for really long hours doing something that you don't particularly love doing. That is going to help you when you have to sit in Civ Pro, which everybody said that they didn't love. When you have to sit and study for it for a long time, just working full time, it kind of gives you like a thicker layer of skin, and it just kind of like prepares your mind to have to do that kind of thing. And again, I 100% do not think that I would have been able to get into the school that I got into and some of the other schools that I got into if I had not had that work experience. And also, now that I talk to other students, that's like there are some really wonderful KJDs, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. You won't be you're not bad if you do that, but that is something like when I'm talking to my peers, it's like, "Oh, that's so cool you did that for a couple of years. Oh, that's so cool that you did that." It just like I don't know. I think it I don't know. I've just found it like helpful socially. I've helped it found it helpful for studying. I think that again, just don't there's no like program in your head that's going to make you successful in law school. Things will ebb and flow and change, and you just got to be good with that.
What is a KJD?
It's when you go from kindergarten straight to
Oh, okay.
No
law
break.
school.
Okay.
No breaks.
Okay, we have a question.
Yes. Hi, my name is Arpita. I'm like a Wayne State student, obviously. And I just had a question. What do you guys think, what was your hardest part of your application or like working through it? Like, do you guys think it was like the LSAT, like your to work on your essays, or which kind of like took you the most time, or like your resume, or your like what was your guys' hardest part, and like what do you guys think was your weakest, I guess?
I would say the hardest part is it's not the LSAT, not even like the GPA, it's the writing because everything else is kind of you know what you need to do. There's no one who can tell you exactly what you need to write. And the thing is, for a lot of times, like it might not even matter that much. Like it does matter, but like you stressing, like it can sometimes hurt you more than it can help you. Like you can ruin a good application with like a bad personal statement or something. So that I think is the most stressful part. Is like you can do everything right and you can mess up a personal statement and then it's over. Not over, but it hurts. Like it hurts your chances. So
I want to agree with that because I think the inclination is to say that the LSAT is the hardest because it's a test we all have to take it in to get into law school. But I think the hardest part is writing a personal statement that makes the school want to admit you. I mean, writing about yourself is surprisingly difficult. Like I don't know if anyone else shares that. Like it's surprisingly difficult to write about yourself, especially in like a context to where you're asking a school to admit you to be a law student. So I think writing a solid personal statement that makes you an appealing applicant is probably I would say it's harder than the LSAT, but that's just me.
Oh, so
Go ahead.
I'm gonna big disagree. I found writing the personal statement, I very much agree. If you struggle with writing about yourself, if you are a student that, again, perhaps you don't know what you want to do, then I could see that that could make it very hard. I think if you're very passionate about something and you are able to tie your background to why you're passionate, I did not find writing the personal statement hard at all because I was again, it was like, oh, I get to write about something that I'm really passionate about and me. So it wasn't to me, I found that not to be difficult. I'm gonna go the stereotypical route. I found the LSAT the hardest part. For me, I think I'm a first gen student. I didn't want to spend $1 million on it, so I didn't take any fancy expensive courses. I didn't do anything like that. It was just me and I was working full time. So again, that's where it was hard to balance that with working full time. But again, that's when you employ like the good routines you built during undergrad. I think too, a lot of students that want to go to law school, you've probably had some academic success, and so it can be really hard when you're taking the LSAT and maybe you're again like doing the practice tests for it and you're like not scoring super well or like that can it can just be like kind of a delicate dance if you have a sensitive ego. And so I just think that um again it's a lot of work, but it is pattern repetition, so it does get easier. I think I took it twice, and again, it was like I was pretty disappointed that I had to do that. But again, it's like that's normal. That's part of the whole like ebb and flow thing that your path isn't linear. And again, it's like we're all doing something that we haven't done before. It's supposed to be hard, etc. So that's my reasoning behind that.
I have to also agree with the personal statement. I do think it's hard to like try to kind of humble brag about yourself in a way that makes you sound appealing but not too appealing. And then another part that I didn't expect to be challenging is the waiting for results. That was torturous last summer. I didn't get results back from some schools until August 30th, and the semester started September 1st. So I just want to put that out there as something to be aware of. It sucks, but you'll get through it. So it's just keep your head up if it's taking longer than you thought it would, because it can weigh on you. And I know that.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, you can go ahead, Lucas.
Yeah, I'd say again, like Kyle, I didn't build some great organization study skills or time management during undergrad. And I think that did reflect in my application process. I'd say that my most difficulty, I found the most difficulty with the personal statement as well. But also, like, I think if I had put more time into the LSAT and just like done more of the practice tests, I would have been happier with the results, obviously. But I took it once, and I was satisfied enough with my results. I'd say, and then the waiting again. To reiterate, Wayne State specifically, not to talk down on the institution, but Michigan State was starting our week of orientation, and Wayne State hadn't given us results back yet. So just like be prepared for that. It might take you right to the wire.
When did you have orientation? When did you have orientation?
It I don't even remember now. It was
August like 28th, something.
So
like
Wayne State didn't do admission decisions until the end of August?
At least for Lucas and I.
That's
Well,
wild.
I
Okay.
mean, for me, Wayne State got back to me, and I didn't want to say February, so like this time last year. And then I'd applied to another school. This was the only school I was waiting on for them. They didn't, they had me on the wait list. They rejected me, but they had me on the wait list till literally a day before class started.
I
and they
found
didn't
out
tell me
April
to.
for I found out April 1st. August is just wild. That's
I think I can actually check when I got it. One second. But
I'm
it was
gonna
pretty
back
crazy.
up Laura here and say that the LSAT, even if it's technically not the hardest, it is like pound for pound the single, like for better or worse, it's the biggest factor in your application. And it's also the one you have the most control over. There's no, you can write a good application, but maybe it's not somebody's taste, but your LSAT score is your LSAT score. So I would definitely recommend spending the most time on it. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah, Alicia.
And on the same note, I'm curious because I'm taking my LSAT like in the summer, and I want to know how you guys studied for it and what methods worked for you. If you guys took more of an independent approach, or if you found like programs like worked where they like tell you how much hours to put in like each day worked for you guys.
I think I studied on my own for it, and I think the prep courses are like cash cows, like they're just money making things. Like in there, like they cost so much money. So I just got a bunch of prep books, Kaplan, Princeton Review, all of those, and I just did practice test after practice test, and I studied and did that independently. I wouldn't pay out of pocket for an LSAT prep course if, I just wouldn't, me personally.
The free Khan Academy LSAT prep course was very helpful for me because it actually does like tell you what parts to target still, and it is free. And I only used that, and I was pretty happy with my LSAT score. So, recommend from me.
There's also the LSAT Demon podcast. I don't know if any of you have listened to that. I think it's called LSAT Demon. But it's great. It's just people talk about LSAT topics and go through practice questions.
Yeah, I just bought like a book that had, some practice problems and it walked you through all the different kinds of questions. And I kind of just I took the LSAT my June going into my senior year, like the summer going into my senior year of college. Took it once and like got lucky, honestly, and was, happy enough with that. But kind of just like worked through the book at my own pace, sort of, when I could drum up the motivation to do so outside of like regular school responsibilities. And then after I did that, I bought, I think, I think it was like Magoosh was the name of the testing site. I didn't pay much. It wasn't like a whole like directed course. It just gave you like access to yeah, it's not always the most fun studying for things that aren't even your actual school. Um, but it basically just gave you access to like practice problems. I think I paid like $150 for it. And it told me like where I would be testing and like the kind of problems that I would need to work on. I thought it was definitely worth the money at the time.
Did anyone take the LSAT at home, or did you all do it at a testing
I
center?
took it 3 times, and I took the
Like,
first time at
I took
home.
it, yeah, I took it at home. And I know they're gonna take that away in August.
Oh,
okay.
they are?
Yeah, they're gonna take it away remotely starting in
Oh,
August.
good. The remote one's not great.
I
Because
Yeah,
couldn't
I
I
remember.
my
imagine.
first one glitched out, so I had to take it a second time because of the technical issues. But I remember they told me they're like 60% of the remote tests, that's what happens.
I
Yeah,
could
no,
not imagine
because
taking it remotely. That's insane.
technically I took it 4 times because so I took it once remote. My mom came home in the middle of the test and started shouting in the house because she didn't realize I was still home. So that one distracted me, but I still did fine on that. But I was like, I think I can get like more points out of it. So I was like, let me take it again. I took it again the second time, and then they kept like their issue. The system kept having issues, so they pushed my test back. Pushed my test back. I was supposed to get like 4 p.m. And then midnight, they're like, "Oh, you can start." So I started my test at 12 a.m. and I was like, I was not ready for that. And I was like, I emailed them. They gave me a free retake, and I took that one in person. And then I took it once again in person. So I think in person is way better. It's honestly like you'll lock in a lot better. I know everybody says, "Oh, you can control your like testing environment." Yeah, but I don't know. There's something about the test centers that are just better. I think they're a lot more relaxing. You're tense at home. I don't know. And also, as far there's one a blueprint and LSAT Demon. I used I think blueprint for like a month before my LSAT. I liked it. And then there's also, I've heard these days that LSAT Demon is the one that you should, if you're going to pay for any type of course. I know I'm saying it's not like the best idea, but if you really want to, that's the one I've heard. Like that's the one to go for. And yeah.
I agree with Dominic. And again, I didn't take them because I knew that I didn't want to, well, I didn't have the money to because I didn't want to spend all the money on it. I think the courses are probably kind of a cash cow. For me, I did books. I just did books and then I did free LSAT Demon. I think the books were really effective. I think that the LSAT, oh, I did Khan Academy too, RIP that that's no longer there. I think that what was really important to me and what I think that anyone can succeed on it even without courses for, so again, I took it twice. The first time my score wasn't bad, it just wasn't what I wanted because I wanted to be, like Kyle said, like your LSAT is really important to your application, unfortunately, and your odds in getting into certain schools. So I knew I wanted to bump mine up a little bit more. And I think that the really, like the fundamental thing that helped me between my first and my second was really learning how to effectively review. I think that because I was working full time, again, like review to me was like, okay, like I'll go through and rush through the answers that I got wrong and like I'll kind of understand or like I just was not fully forcing myself to work through and memorize what made a wrong answer wrong and a right answer right. And I think that that again, because the LSAT is so much pattern recognition, really knowing and instilling how to review is going to be very helpful to you when you actually take it. That was at least it for me.
Kaylee, you have a question?
Yeah. So when you went to take the LSAT in person, what kind of testing method did you use and how long was it? I guess the time limit on it.
The time limit is kind of decided for you, isn't it? Each section is timed. I think the rule of thumb is what, like a minute something per question or something like that, I believe, but I could be wrong.
It shakes out to something like that, but you are sitting in front of a computer with headphones on, in like a little cubicle. At least I was, and I think that's what most testing centers look like. So it's pretty much just how you would have taken it at home, but less distractions, less clutter. I definitely found it relaxing and like centering on the test.
What was the question about the formatting of the test? How many sections there are, how long each section is, that sort of thing? Is that?
Yeah.
There's there's two sections of logical reasoning, where that's where the sufficient assumption, necessary assumption, all of those questions are. There's one section of reading comprehension, and then I think there's one, it's a random one, isn't it? I think the fourth section is a surprise one. You don't know. It could be either reading comprehension or logical reasoning. It used to be logic games, but thankfully they got rid of those. We don't have to do those. But yeah, two logical reasoning, one reading comprehension, and then one. I don't. Professor Roth, do you know how they determine the last section? Is it based on how you did on the previous
I have
ones?
no idea. They
Okay,
used to just have an experimental section that they
that's
would
yeah, that's what it's
in.
called. Yeah,
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 it's
and
just randomized.
it's just random. Okay.
And also
Yeah.
I will not take the logic games slander. I miss the logic games. Logic games are the
No,
best part. It was so fun. It was like a little game.
no. What is it? It's 27 questions, right? If I remember correctly. Is that it for logical reasoning? I think something like that,
I don't
I
remember the
believe.
time or how many I like have pushed that
I'm
so
trying
far
to remember, but
out.
I can't. Yeah, I don't want to think about it.
yeah.
It's on what LSAC website. If you look it up, they have all of everything very in detail of what it is, for timing, sectioning, things like that.
Thank
Other
you.
questions that people have? Well, what has not been covered so far that people think that pre-law students ought to know?
Straight
I
straight
would
into
just
law
say
school.
the culture is very different from undergrad, and that's something that people don't talk about a lot because it's almost like everyone's telling you not to be competitive while also putting you in the most competitive scenario of your life and literally ranking you, giving you a number next to your name. So that's something to think about in studying and making friends and your habits. So that's just another aspect that I didn't even think about because I'm crazy competitive. So it has made me go a little nuts in law school. So just think about that. Think about that if you're nuts.
The grading curve. Sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
Oh yeah, just like seems like most of you are applying to law school, so trying to think about like what would be helpful advice on like the actual application process. I think uh when it comes to your personal statement, don't write what you think you want them to hear. Write, like write true to your heart. To I can't think of a better way to put it, but I think, the people that read these application statements read thousands a year. They've been reading them for years. They're gonna see through you if you're like writing to pander to them. Honestly, that was, I think, part of the reason why I didn't do as well the first time I applied to law school, and I wrote a personal statement um, that was a little bit more true to the heart, I guess. And my results in my second time applying were much better. Um, Also, make sure, I know it sucks, but do the optional essays, any optional essay they offer, definitely write that as well. Um, because it does matter.
I would definitely agree with Kyle that, again, I think you should write about something you're passionate about. If you don't know where your passions lie, write about something that you're interested about because, again, that will really shine through. And the advisors who have, again, like Kyle said, read 9 bajillion papers before, they would rather hear an engaging narrative about and be able to tell someone's really interested in the thing that they're writing about instead of like, I want to go and save the world if you don't actually, if that's not actually your pursuit, because probably a lot of other people are writing that too. I think just spend a lot of time with it. Also, again, like the optional essays are so, I'll just say like they're very annoying to have to do, but again, like put time into them. Really like again, just like treat the application process like again, like you really need to have a routine and put like good time management skills, really chunk out time for it if you want to create quality product for your essays because it'll matter and reflect. And I think too, I something that I just always want to emphasize is really lock into when you're in undergrad. I think it's helpful networking now, again, like speaking to law students, speaking to professors, reaching out to lawyers that are interested in things that you might possibly be. It can be intimidating, but I did a lot of networking during undergrad, and people are generally very nice and willing to talk to someone that's interested in what they do. And again, it's like always good to have more information and a connection that can be helpful in the long term. I just can't stress enough how important that is.
I think Kyle made a really good point about how they read thousands of applications. Like, write something that they'll remember. Like, write something that they'll read just be like, okay, this sounds like an interesting person. It'll stick out to them. Don't be just like one of the, thousands of applications they read.
Yeah, this isn't very insightful at all, but don't freak out. Just do the work and be prepared. Like it's way easier to stress about the LSAT than it is to like go and take practice tests, but take the practice tests. And I think that applies in law school too. Just like it's okay to be wrong, but it's really not okay to go in unprepared.
Okay. Any final questions before we wrap this up? Going once. Okay. Well, I want to take the opportunity to thank all of our panelists for interrupting all of their hard law school study and taking the time to share their experiences with pre-law students. And good luck to each of you in all of your activities. And if you would like to make your email addresses available to people, send me a message to that effect, and I will send them on to the PLSA leadership. Otherwise, I'm going to end the recording, and then we can stay on and talk generally if people are available to do that. But for now. Thanks very much and have a good night.